The metal hinge snapped open with a thunderous crack that ricocheted across the abandoned villa like a warning from the walls themselves. Investigators stiffened, flashlights trembling in their palms, because the moment they had spent months chasing, the moment whispered about in leaks, theories, fan forums, and shadow-laced rumors, had finally arrived. Yu Menglong's hidden safe, the one no blueprint had ever acknowledged, the one no technician could track, the one even his closest staff denied existed, was open, and what it held inside was nothing anyone expected. The air inside the villa shifted the same way it had in previous strange recordings, as though something old and unseen had just been disturbed. Dust spiraled through beams of flashlight like silver threads dancing to an invisible song. The temperature dropped so sharply one investigator thought the room was breathing. The chandelier flickered 3 times, the same eerie rhythm seen in the leaked hidden camera footage from Menglong's private room, just before the safe revealed its secrets. For weeks, online sleuths had dissected every rumor. Some said the safe contained letters from a forgotten past. Others said it held evidence against powerful figures. A few whispered that it wasn't just a safe, it was the last barrier protecting the world from whatever had chased Menglong the night he vanished. Whatever people believed, nothing compared to what investigators saw as the door finally slid open, as if guided by an invisible hand. Inside lay objects so strange, so chilling, so impossible to explain that the first investigator recoiled. A black notebook bound in crimson thread sat at the top, its cover worn as though someone had clutched it in a panic. Beneath it rested an old flash drive blinking with a faint blue pulse, though no power source existed in the villa. A narrow glass vial glittered in the corner, filled with swirling silver liquid that moved as if aware of the light. And at the very bottom, half hidden under dust, lay a torn photograph of Yu Menglong standing beside a faceless shadow that looked thicker than darkness, exactly like the figure seen haunting earlier leaked videos. But all of this faded compared to the final object, a small audio recorder, warm to the touch, humming softly as though it had just been used. No one breathed as the investigators pressed play. The first sound was footsteps, 2 sets. One light and hurried. One slow and dragging. Then came Menglong's voice, trembling, strained, exhausted. "If you're hearing this, it means they found me," he whispered. Static crackled around him like something was moving too close to the microphone. "It means I didn't outrun them. And it means the shadow is real." The investigators exchanged looks of pure disbelief, because his words didn't sound scripted or dramatic. They sounded like a man recording something he knew might be his last message. The audio continued, his breath shaky, his voice lower. "I wasn't supposed to survive the first night," he said. "Not after I saw what was inside the vial. Not after I learned why they wanted it hidden. If they find this safe, tell the world the truth, they were never after me. They were after what I knew." The recording ended abruptly with a loud crash and a choked gasp. The room in the present fell silent. Even the dust seemed to stop moving. With trembling fingers, the investigators opened the notebook. Symbols covered the pages, symbols that matched the marks seen on Menglong's wrist in leaked hospital images. Jagged diagrams, coordinates, erratic sketches of dark hallways, timestamps repeating the same number, 213. That was the fateful time his final messages froze. The same time the safe unlocked on its own. The same time the chandelier flickered above their heads. On the last page, written in frantic pen strokes, they found a message that made the air feel heavier. "The shadow isn't following me. It's protecting me." The room seemed to pulse at those words. The vial, still sealed, glimmered unnaturally. The silver liquid inside shifted into shapes that mimicked the shadows of the investigators standing nearby. At one point, it formed a rough outline of a face, his face, before trembling and collapsing back into fluid. Scientists would later confirm that the substance didn't match any known chemical. Some said it wasn't even behaving like matter. Others said it reacted like memory. The flash drive proved even stranger. When an offline laptop was booted up, the screen blipped into darkness. A single folder appeared, titled, "Don't Open." Investigators ignored the warning. They clicked. A video filled the screen. Yu Menglong stood in the same hidden room from the leaked hallway footage. His hair disheveled, his expression sunken, his hands trembling as he held the camera close. "They're back," he whispered. "But this time, they found the safe." He turned the camera toward the doorway. There it was. The shadow figure. Taller than a man, darker than darkness, but not lunging or looming, pointing. Pointing directly at the place where the safe would later be found. This time, the figure's outline glowed faintly. Not menacing. Warning. Guiding. Menglong's voice cracked as he continued, "If you open the safe, you open everything." The screen went black. Investigators moved next to the torn photograph from the safe. Under infrared light, new details emerged, light bending unnaturally around the faceless figure, shadows that curved in ways no physics could explain, and a hidden message scrawled across the back in Menglong's unmistakable handwriting: "Do not trust the ones in white." This one line sent ripples through the investigation. Who were the ones in white? Doctors from the hospital leaks? Technicians seen near the villa days before his disappearance? Investigators who originally handled the case? Or someone, or something, else entirely? The more they uncovered, the more the walls seemed to close in. The villa's wooden beams groaned as if the house itself disliked their presence. The doors slammed without wind. Lights flickered aggressively whenever the vial was moved. Every mystery from previous stories, every shadow, every flicker, every unexplained malfunction, suddenly felt connected. Not random. Not paranormal. Coordinated. The lead investigator whispered to the team, "We were never meant to find this." Another replied, "This changes everything we believed about him." A third stared at the sketch of the shadow in the notebook and murmured, "He wasn't running from it. He was running with it." The idea hit them like a shockwave. What if the shadow wasn't the threat? What if it was the shield? What if everything the world believed about his disappearance was backwards? When they finally stepped out of the villa, the massive doors slammed behind them with a force no human could have produced. The lights inside switched off at once, leaving the entire mansion in absolute darkness, as if the secrets had buried themselves again. And the investigators walked away not with answers, but with a chilling realization: Yu Menglong had discovered something powerful before he vanished. Something tied to the vial, the symbols, the notebook, the shadows, the time 213. Something he feared. Something he trusted. Something he tried to lock away. But now it was open. And whatever he had protected the world from was no longer locked inside a safe. The mystery was never closed. It was only sleeping. And on the night the safe opened, it woke up again. The villa did not settle after the safe opened. If anything, it felt increasingly alive, as though every wall had been waiting years for someone brave, or foolish, enough to disturb what Yu Menglong sealed away. The investigators felt it instantly. The temperature kept dropping in pulses, like the room was exhaling between heartbeats. Floorboards murmured their age, electrical veins hummed faintly as if carrying whispers instead of power, and somewhere beneath the floor, something echoed, a slow, metallic tap that didn't match the sound of any human movement. They blamed nerves at first. But nothing about the atmosphere felt like nerves. It felt like presence. The flashlight beam swung across the open safe again, illuminating the swirling silver liquid in the vial. It no longer lay still. It had risen into a thin column inside the glass, stretching toward the light like a living thread reaching for recognition. Every time the flashlight flickered, the liquid twisted in response, mimicking the exact pattern. Almost like communication. One investigator stepped closer, leaning down to inspect it. His breath fogged instantly, forming a swirl identical to the pattern in the vial. "It's reflecting us," he whispered. But that wasn't quite it. The liquid wasn't copying the investigators, it was studying them. The black notebook remained untouched on the velvet lining of the safe, but even from a distance, the investigators could sense it wasn't just a collection of thoughts. It hummed, faintly, like a pulse hidden under layers of from the grave fear. The crimson thread wrapped around its spine looked frayed, stretched in places where it had been tied too tight, as if someone had bound it in a hurry, with trembling hands, afraid of something escaping. The lead investigator finally picked up the notebook. A static hiss shot through the room. The chandelier flickered violently. Shadows on the wall stretched downward, long and thin, distorting in unnatural directions. The notebook vibrated, briefly, before falling silent, settling heavy in his palm like it recognized a new owner. He opened it to the first page. The ink was a mess, scratches, spirals, frantic lines that looked like someone trying to outrun their own thoughts. But near the top, written in neat handwriting that clearly came before the panic, was a sentence underlined twice. "Do not open the safe. Do not let them inside." The investigator swallowed hard. "Inside what?" he muttered. Another flipped the page, slowly, almost reverently. Symbols filled the space. Some curved like ancient script, some geometric like arcane blueprints, others spiraling into sharp black centers that seemed to pull in light. It was the same symbol they'd seen faintly burned into Menglong's wrist in the leaked hospital clips. Not a tattoo. A mark. A warning. A target. The notebook wasn't just documenting fear, it was documenting pursuit. The deeper they read, the more frantic the writing became. Notes scribbled over older notes, entire sentences overwritten as though Menglong had panicked and corrected himself mid-thought. Dates scribbled 3 times each. The same time, 2:13, circled so aggressively the paper tore. One page contained a sketch of the shadow figure, but this one was different from earlier sightings. Here, Menglong had drawn it standing beside him, not chasing him. Its hand was resting on his shoulder. Not threatening. Guiding. The investigators felt a cold ripple run through the room. One dropped the notebook in shock. The moment it hit the ground, the chandelier above them dimmed momentarily, then flared brighter than before, casting elongated silhouettes across the walls. Those silhouettes didn't match the positions of the investigators. They moved a beat slower. A beat delayed. Like echoes belonging to something in the room that wasn't part of the living. One silhouette held the same shape as the shadow figure. The investigators spun around. Nothing was behind them. At least, nothing visible. But the air was definitely thicker now. Charged. Watching. The torn photograph drew their attention next, lying partly hidden in the velvet cradle of the safe. One investigator reached in and lifted it, gripping the edges carefully like it was an artifact pulled from a forbidden tomb. The shadow in the image looked even more defined in person, faceless yet somehow expressive, towering beside Menglong as if standing guard. The edges of the photograph were burnt, the scorch marks curling inward like the picture had been rescued from a fire moments before being lost forever. On the back, faint ink bled through the paper. The investigator held the photo nearer to the flashlight and squinted. More words. More warnings. More desperation. If they find this, it means they're close. Don't trust the ones who disappear from camera angles. Don't trust the ones whose shadows don't match their bodies. His voice trembled. What does that even mean? Before anyone answered, the audio recorder inside the safe crackled again, despite no one touching it. The room froze. The recorder clicked, whirred, and then began playing on its own. Footsteps again. This time louder. Closer. The dragging sound sharper. Menglong's voice broke through the static, frantic, whispering fast as if trying to speak before someone else entered the room. I can't hold them back anymore, he said. The shadow knows. It knows the truth. They aren't chasing me. They're chasing what I found. Don't let them. A crash. A gasp. A thud. Then silence. Absolute and suffocating. The investigators stood still, hearts pounding, every instinct screaming to leave the house, to flee the suffocating truth of the moment. But something kept them rooted, the sense that turning around would reveal something they weren't meant to see just yet. Something watching from the corner of the room. Something waiting for permission to move. The silver liquid in the vial pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. One investigator leaned in, spellbound. And in that moment, the liquid rose again, slow, deliberate, pressing against the glass as if testing its strength. Testing the boundaries of its prison. It formed a shape. A number. 213. The lights above them flickered twice. The investigators stepped back. Something was aligning. Something that had begun long before they arrived, something that continued the exact moment the safe opened. The house, the shadows, the objects, the unseen presence, they were all part of a cycle, one Menglong had tried desperately to break. And now the investigators felt it, deep in their bones. Opening the safe didn't just reveal secrets. It activated something. Something that had been waiting. Watching. Sleeping. Until now. The moment they disturbed the safe, the cycle began again.